it's Melody with Design by Melody today. I have a card I'm going to share with you. I've got a variety of supplies here. We're actually going to start by stamping the image so that it can dry before we actually use it. So I'm using this stamp set by the Stamps of Life from Stephanie Bernard, and this is actually the bubblegum4me stamp set, and you can see it here. Very cute stamp set. I actually gave you a preview of what this card was going to be a couple weeks ago. So now I'm actually just going to show you the making of the card. So first things first, we're just going to mount this stamp, the big bubblegum, the big bubblegum machine rather, on our stamping block. Ink it up with not with Versamark, but with Memento Tuxedo Black. So make sure it is well inked. I'm just going to stamp this on the corner here, making sure it's well pressed down, and you can see it there. And it does take a little bit to dry. Both of these pieces of paper that I'm using here are vellum, and it takes it quite a while to dry on this vellum. I'm going to do the same thing right here on this red vellum. Again, making sure we get as good of an impression as we possibly can. There we go. We're going to let that dry as well. And then lastly, we're going to stamp it once more on a piece of white cardstock. Alright, there we go. Just stamping in that last time on this white cardstock. And again, that's the Memento Tuxedo Black paper, ink. It's later in the evening and my brain is not working. So now this one is actually already dry because it dries pretty quickly on just cardstock, so I'm just going to trim this out. Okay, I've got that trimmed out, and since it is on a piece of white cardstock, I'm actually going to use this Zig Writer pen to color in the edges, just so you don't see that white seam when it's on the card. Alright, so that's complete. In this step, this white piece is actually just a base for us to build our gumball machine on top of, so it's not totally necessary to have that, but that just helps it keep it a little bit more of a finished look on the edges. So I'm still letting our gumballs here dry, our machines dry. Next we'll go ahead and prep our card base. And this is actually a piece of, let's see, Fig Swirl from Basil. And it's trimmed to 4 1/4 by 11. So we're actually going to make this a side folding card. So it's going to be a horizontal card. So we're actually going to create a score line at 5 1/2. I'm going to get a good score line here. And the reason I chose this is because it's a nice gray, very pale gray. And you actually barely can tell except for when you put the white up next to it, you can see the gray. Alright, so next we're actually going to take some scrap pieces of paper using a 1/2 inch circle punch. You can just as easily use the circles from the stamp set, especially this hollow one, this clear one that just has the outline, and stamp it on top of your scrap pieces and then just trim around it. But just for sake of ease, I'm going to use my circle hole punch. I'm just going to punch out a variety of these. There we go. So we're going to set those aside. Obviously I have way too many for what we need, but it'll give me some variety to choose from. So next we're actually going to take these vellum pieces. The red one is dry. So I'm just going to trim it out. And actually what we want, the glass piece will be done in this white vellum, and then these red pieces will be this top piece and then this bottom piece. So that's what I'm going to actually trim out. Alright, so we've got those pieces of our machine. Now we're actually going to cut out the glass globe of this one. And there is that piece. So they will layer right on top of here. But before we actually put those pieces on top, we need to put our gumballs inside. So I'm actually just going to coat the back of this with glue. There we go. And we're just going to place our gumballs on here. So there we go. We've got our gumballs all inside here. Alright, so here we go. And there is a bit of adhesive on the edges, but that actually will work in our favor. So now we're going to adhere our pieces on top of this. And using the leftover glue that was on the back side, we're actually going to adhere this clear piece down. Now this side there's not enough glue that is showing, so I'm just going to tack a little bit more on the side. And this glue tape or tape runner that I'm using is a solid stripe of tape, so you cannot actually see it. Not enough to mess up the patterns coming through. And we're going to adhere our red piece right on top. And as you can see, there's a little bit of this white cardstock sticking out, so I will trim that off in just a moment. Now I'm just coating that again with the glue. Since it's a solid tape runner, you're not going to be able to tell as much. The biggest thing here is just making sure that my images line up so you don't see a shadow of the stamping. And then very lastly, we're going to put this top piece on. And the reason that I put the clear piece on first is so that I can slightly overlap the red pieces on top, and it'll truly look like the gumball, the glass globe of the gumball is encased in the red metal part. So now I'm just going to trim off this bit at the bottom. There we go. And our gumball machine is actually completed. So let's take our card base. We're going to put this gumball machine right here. And we're also going to stamp a sentiment over here. We're actually going to stamp this Have a Ball, but you could actually use You Blow Me Away, Have a Bubblicious Day, which is the one that I used on the example I shared with you. Bless You, Feel Better Soon, Don't Let Anyone Burst Your Bubble. And I used it in conjunction with this stamp set from Doodlebug Design, which had Happy Birthday, Congrats, Happy Birthday, Thanks, You're Invited, Miss You, Get Well Soon, Thinking of You, Hello, With Love, Celebrate, Welcome, Smile, For You, Love You, Best Wishes, Just Because. So really you could put any of these on the front and then also follow it up with one of these in the inside. But for this card, we're actually just going to use this Have a Ball. Then we're going to use that Memento Tuxedo black ink. We're going to stamp this right on the inside, right on the front, right here beside where our gumball machine is going to be. Then we're going to adhere this down, but before we do that, I'm actually going to draw a border line using my Tim Holtz ruler in the same Zig Writer. So just using the 0.5mm line, I'm going to draw a border. You could also stitch a border if you prefer with your sewing machine. There we go. And it overlaps slightly in the corners. And lastly, we're actually going to attach our gumball machine, and I'm going to use some dimensional adhesives to do this. Alright, and put this right on the card. Actually going to put it more towards the bottom. There you go. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the card for today. Here's what it looks like. Has a little bit of dimension, and you can stamp whatever sentiment you want on the inside or leave it blank like I have. Thanks for watching today, guys. Bye.